coast to coast, it's your hosts, the Lombardi Leap and Mersey FB. This is Beyond the Frozen Tundra.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, the Lombardi Leap. No Mercy FB today, as he is celebrating the holidays with his family. So, everybody listening, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. I wanted to get out a quick episode here as we kind of go through the holidays, as the Packers don't get a holiday vacation here, or a Christmas vacation, I should call it. Instead, we're breaking down Baltimore Ravens coming into Green Bay, Lambeau Field. Another AFC NFC matchup here that does have some playoff implications for both teams. The Packers win and they're in, or I believe they have like a 99 or 94% chance or something ridiculous like that. But it's pretty much winning you're in for the Packers, and the Baltimore Ravens in another must-win game to keep some semblance of their playoff hopes alive, albeit a small chance, as they are needing the Steelers to lose to the Browns. Otherwise, the Steelers can lock up the division there, effectively eliminating the Ravens' chances at a playoff picture. Both teams really kind of coming into this game needing a win, to say the least. Packers, it's more momentum-based, secure a playoff spot. And the Ravens really needing a win, like I said, to keep their playoff hopes alive. Biggest thing, though, is that the Packers are fairly battered, and they are really kind of looking to carry some momentum into these last two games. This is your last home game at Lambeau Field. You finish up against another battered team in the Minnesota Vikings with no playoff hopes here as we flip towards the playoffs in January. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens, kind of looking at where they're coming from, they do know who they are offensively. They've made a lot of mistakes. They are a physical, run-heavy, defensive-minded team, but they just have not executed consistently at all, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And on top of that, too, Lamar Jackson, very, very banged up this year. And they've had a few defensive lapses, to say the least. And we know that Harbaugh has been very, very adamant about criticizing his coordinators this year, especially. But they do still believe they have a shot at the postseason. For the Packers, coming off of a loss to the Bears, in which we lost our starting quarterback to a concussion. There's been a lot of growth under pressure here. I definitely think Jordan Love, had he not dealt with some injuries here, as well as had Matt LaFleur kind of thrown a couple other touchdowns here and there too as well, I think that he'd be in an MVP conversation, but he definitely took another step in 2025. The offense looks like it has evolved. The Packers have found ways to win games, at the very least compete in games too as well. The injuries have stacked up. I mean, if we're looking at this roster, Tucker Kraft, ACL, Micah Parsons, ACL, two of your biggest players on offense and defense out for the rest of the year. Zach Tom, your bookend right tackle, has been dealing with injuries all year on and off. Probably won't play this game. I mean, I'd expect him to not play this game. He might not even play the rest of the year until the playoffs. Kind of what I'm looking at here for him. And that Devontae Wyatt on the defensive line. I mean, the list kind of just goes on and on and on for these Packers and these injuries. It's been kind of like Murphy's Law. What can go wrong will go wrong. That doesn't mean you haven't seen guys step up, and you're going to need guys to step up here, especially because you're taking on a very run-heavy Baltimore Ravens team, and so those trenches are going to be extremely important there. Kind of before we dive into the matchups here real quick, I do just kind of want to rehash these injuries. I kind of mentioned it earlier, but the biggest storyline that is coming out of Baltimore right now is Lamar Jackson's health. He left last game, did not come back with a back contusion. And that's basically a deep, deep bone bruise, if I recall correctly there, in his back. And this has been something, not the back contusion per se, but what has been an issue has been Lamar Jackson's overall health this year. He has struggled with injuries, and that has really limited his impact on the field. He's dealt with knee issues, he's dealt with ankle issues. He also had a notable hamstring injury that limited him early in the fall as well. And his play has been a little erratic, I want to say here. I mean, this isn't to say he's a bad quarterback this year. I'm not saying that at all. It's just because he's missed so much time, he struggled getting into the rhythm of things. Like, it hasn't been an ideal year. He only has 18 passing touchdowns. He does have 6 interceptions. I do think also some of that is related to the offensive, to the offensive wide receiver room there. I mean, obviously, they have Zay Flowers, but they have a slot but he's a slot wide receiver, but it's kind of a middling wide receiver room that I don't think necessarily helps them all that much as well. And on top of that too, defensively, they haven't been as great in a pass rush, even though they tried to make some moves to shore that up. There are some great aspects of this defense, though, which I'll get into later. But I'm not really sure that the defense is doing them doing the offense any favors as well. The Packers is kind of a different story. I like I know that the Ravens can survive without Lamar Jackson for stretches. I mean, Huntley is a really good backup quarterback. I think he's one of the better backup quarterbacks in the league. I mean, you could argue that he's second, like him and Malik Willis, which I'll get into the injuries here for Malik Willis. But him and Malik Willis, I think, are very, very good backup quarterbacks that you can win games. You can win games with Malik Willis. You can win games with Tyler Huntley there. And so I I'm anticipating because Lamar Jackson did not when I'm recording this episode, it is Wednesday the 24th, Christmas Eve. So I'm anticipating Huntley to play. I just I don't see a world where well, I shouldn't say that I'm anticipating. I mean, it's an important game for the Ravens. So it's really tough because their playoff champs is slim, but if I'm Lamar Jackson and I can go, do I go? I mean, yeah, because even though your playoff chances are slim, you should you should go and you should play. But backs are a funny thing, and he's been banged up all year. I guess I'm still anticipating them to play the backup quarterback, Huntley. That's who I think is going to end up playing here. It's not like they don't rely heavy on the run, anyways. Green Bay though, Packers, we have our own issues. Jordan Love obviously left the Bears game with a concussion. Malik Willis ended up playing majority of the game, did well. Unfortunately, he sustained a shoulder injury in that loss versus the Bears as well, and he did not participate on Wednesday as well due to illness. And Clayton Tune, our practice squad quarterback, was taking second team reps. So if I had to indicate here, I would say Jordan Love is going to be your QB1. He is going to play. He did practice both he practiced both Tuesday and Wednesday here. I believe they just had walkthroughs on Wednesday. So I do think that Jordan Love is going to be back, which will be good to see. I think that he's going to be clearing concussion protocol here as well. I don't anticipate Malik Willis to be the backup quarterback. I think they will elevate Clayton Tune as your quarterback too. So with these injuries, obviously the Packers have had to kind of shift a little bit of their mentality, both defensively and offensively. But Baltimore kind of dealing with some stuff here too as well. Playing into the strengths or looking at the strengths here, Ravens run the ball. They like to control tempo and they like to force opponents into uncomfortable third downs. They want this game to slow down. They want to frustrate you. If they get the lead, they will lean on Derrick Henry, who is still playing phenomenal football at 31 years old. I mean, 6'3", 247-pound running back. There's a reason why they call him King Henry. having another phenomenal year. I mean, he's fourth in rushing yards with 1,253. He has 12 rushing touchdowns. He's averaging 5 yards per attempt, four fumbles on the year, which is kind of a issue with this offense here. I believe Zay Flowers has three fumbles, Derrick Henry has four, and Lamar Jackson has another three. So they can give the ball over here. They can give the ball up. He's forcing you to miss. He's 33 missed tackles on the year. That's 21st in the league. Like this, Derrick Henry has not looked like he has slowed down at all whatsoever. And this is going to be interesting to see how he matches up versus this Packers defensive line. And the reason is I say that is because the Packers have signed a couple guys. They signed Quentin Bohannon. They signed Jordan Riley. You have Nazir Stackhouse on the roster. Those are your true nose tackle-esque type players. Devontae White is on IR. Carl Brooks is more of a pass rushing defensive tackle. And then you have Colby Wooden, who everybody should know at this point. Mercy and I are not a fan of him, but he is your converted nose tackle. He's a defensive end, converted to defensive tackle, converted to nose tackle. But again, just a smaller guy. And Carl Brooks, smaller guy as well. Warren Brinson was more known for his run stuffing ability in college, but has seemed to have better pass rush repertoire here in the NFL. Who I think is better than Colby Wooden, but you're still dealing with a relatively smaller bodied defensive line versus I would say is a pretty solid offensive line for the Ravens. I mean, it's not perfect. You do have some concerns at guard with Andrew Voorhees, not the greatest, having a pretty suboptimal year, as well as Daniel Falele. Again, not the greatest guards here, but you're going against, I would argue, a smaller but speedier defensive tackle room in the Packers. And then they have Tyler Linderbaum, who is easily one of the best centers in the league. Going to be doing extension here, going to be worth every penny. And they have some solid tackles in Ronnie Stanley, as well as Roger Rosengarten. So there's you're weaker along the interior. The Packers obviously lost Micah Parsons, so they're kind of working through that pass rush. What's that going to look like? On the bright side, the Packers did get some reinforcements to their pass rush by activating Brenton Cox Jr., who played last week versus the Bears. And then the Packers' fifth-round draft pick in Colin Oliver, who I have said off the pod, definitely kind of reminds me of like, I want to say like great value Micah Parsons. And that's just because he's 6'2", around 230, speedier, did a lot to get to the quarterback, did a lot of similar stuff that Micah Parsons does at Oklahoma State. So it is going to be interesting to see how he gets incorporated, if he gets incorporated, definitely on what I would constitute as obvious passing downs, third and long, get him in there, tell him go get the quarterback. But he can pop out and play linebacker as well. So he does have that ability, that versatile ability to line up very similar to how Jeff Hafley used Micah Parsons. Green Bay here, they are realistically kind of about balance and adaptability. They want to run the ball, but they also want to pass the ball. They are pretty split on there. Defensively, we want to limit the big plays. That's ultimately what they want to do. When they can win by limiting how many snaps the opposing offenses take. And that just means that Green Bay's offense has to capitalize on their red zone trips. Last game against the Bears, they were 0 for 4 in the red zone. You can't do that here. You cannot go 0 for 4 in the red zone, especially against these Ravens. What these Packers are going to have to do is if they're limiting what the Ravens are doing on offense, you got to capitalize. You got to capitalize offensively on your trips to the red zone, especially at Lambeau Field. Get the lead, get it early. Let them run the ball then and control the tempo. Because if you're the team that's running the ball and you're forcing a backup quarterback to throw, mistakes are going to get made. 'Cause they're gonna want to run the ball with Derrick Henry. I'd wanna run the ball with Derrick Henry, especially against this Packers team. But if the Packers can get a lead, get it early, control the tempo, they're not gonna be able to rely on Derrick Henry as much. What are we looking at struggling wise? Obviously, like, missing certain players could swing the matchup. I mean, this game might be defined by a player or 2. Is Lamar Jackson gonna play? I've said probably not. The issue with the Baltimore Ravens is that when they fall behind early, their offense becomes predictable. And defensively, they are physical, but there are some holes. They don't really get to the quarterback all that well. They've tried bringing in a couple guys. They've tried bringing in Vermont Jones out of Tennessee. They also drafted Mike Green in the second round. They have Kyle Van Noy, who 30, basically 35 at this point, is he's aging defensive end there. They also have Travis Jones on the defensive line, not the greatest pass rusher, more of a run defender. John Jenkins, another guy, again, an okay pass rusher, not the greatest. Brent Urban, not really a pass rusher at all whatsoever. And then you have 2 linebackers who aren't the greatest in coverage. And if you are forcing this team to play coverage football, like, you can really expose these linebackers. You can, specifically Simpson. You can expose Trenton Simpson. Roquan Smith, everybody, we should all be familiar with Roquan Smith. He was a longtime Bear, still one of the best in the game. Not really a pass rusher, but when it comes to everything else, he is still a really good linebacker. And the secondary, Nate Wiggins, probably one of the few people who can actually run with Christian Watson. Kyle Hamilton, unicorn of a safety, one of the best safeties in the league. Pairs great with Aloy Gilman, former Charger, I believe. There he came over. I mean, there's a lot to like about the secondary, but there are some holes. And I'd say their biggest holes, especially in coverage, are going to be Trenton Simpson and their slot cornerback, Marlon Humphrey. Marlon Humphrey, while he gets some interceptions, while he gets some takeaways, has not been the greatest in coverage this year at all. The Packers are going to target 2 people. It's going to be Humphreys in the slot as well as Simpson as a tight end. It'd be interesting to see how well they get Musgrave involved with this, because right now we are down to 2 tight ends. I guess as they elevate one, but Josh Wiley should be coming back from concussion protocol. Fitzpatrick, unfortunately, tore his Achilles. He's on IR. The Packers only have 2 tight ends on the roster right now, which is kind of crazy to think about that. For this Packers team, the run game is going to be a potential weakness here. You're small. You're small at the defensive tackle. You're quick. You're quick, but you are small there. Derrick Henry is 6'3", 200 and almost 50 pounds. That is a big running back. He's basically as big as your linebackers at this point. And so if I'm this Packers team, you're going to have to stay disciplined. You're going to have to stay disciplined. You're going to have to hit the run games, bottle them up. Packers have had success against Derrick Henry in the past. I believe it was a snowy game at Lambeau Field back when he was a Tennessee Titan. And A.J. Dillon actually played better. Former Packer, now Eagle, A.J. Dillon actually outrushed King Henry and played a better running back game than King Henry did that game, because the Packers defense just did such a great job bottling up Derrick Henry. Health is something you can't control if you're Green Bay. Zach Thomas, most likely, I'd be shocked if Zach Tom plays. Your quarterback is coming back from a concussion. You're missing your number 1 tight end in Tucker Kraft. You're missing a backup tight end in Fitzpatrick. Your other tight end, Josh Wiley, was dealing with concussion, is coming back. Luke Musgrave does have some issues, staying on his feet still, but you have seen some improvement towards the end of the year. At least he is catching the ball predominantly. Still not staying on his feet as much as you'd like, but he is catching the ball nonetheless. And then on top of that, too, you'd like to see the Ravens dealing with their health issues at quarterback. I mean, how are the Packers going to prepare for that? Well, you have a secondary that's gotten torn up by Jacoby Brissett, by it's given up big plays when they're not supposed to. Look at the last game against Caleb Williams. It's just a matter of, are you going to be able to get to the quarterback in time? You lost Micah Parsons. Colin Oliver is going to be playing. I mentioned that earlier. LVN need, dealt with injuries all season. Needs to step up. Rashawn Gary, while great versus the run, just does not look the same as a pass rusher, unfortunately. So it is really going to be interesting to see how Jeff Halfley cooks up there. I do imagine he's going to still rush the occasional linebacker like Quay, but again, you want to very much control the run lanes against these Ravens. I mean, if I'm watching this game here, there are really three people who I have to kind of keep an eye on if I'm the Packer. I mean, Derrick Henry. I probably talked about Derrick Henry 2/3 of this podcast, 2/3 of this episode at this point. Baltimore wins, it's likely because Derrick Henry is just running and gashing through the Packers like what happened to us against the Panther game. Kyle Hamilton in that secondary, unicorn of a player, one of the best safeties. I mean, it's him disrupting. And then it's really about the QB situation there. I expect Lamar Jackson to not play. I expect them to go with the backup quarterback, and I think that the Packers are kind of leaning that way as well, especially when you're dealing with a back contusion. That's going to limit. Lamar Jackson can run, and he's dealing with a deep bone bruise in his back. That's going to very much limit his ability to perform, especially in a cold Lambeau field. It's only supposed to be like a high of 38 degrees. So that QB situation is going to be key for the Ravens there. For the Packers, I mean, Jordan Love, I do think he needs to play. I think he is going to play, and I think that there's no question there at this point. Like I said, he has practiced so far in a limited fashion just about every day. Looking at Mercy's and I's players, Mercy picked Quay, and I can understand why he'd pick Quay Walker on the defensive side of the ball because Quay is going to be essential at tackling Derrick Henry and making and clogging those run lanes, as well as he picked Christian Watson, which is kind of interesting. I mean, Christian Watson is going to be important to take the top off the defense. He is definitely, I would say, physically bigger than Nate Wiggins, who I expect to shadow him predominantly, as well as Watson is going to be important to take the top off the defense. I well, yeah, I'll get into the scores here in just a minute, but I kind of went with more of the slot pick offensively because that secondary is so good, but where their biggest weaknesses is in that slot. And I know you have to look out for Roquan Smith, but you're dealing with Marlon Humphreys as well as Trenton Simpson. I think those two guys can definitely be exposed by your slot wide receiver. And so that's why I ended up going with Jaden Reed as my offensive pick. And then one of the best guys I think doesn't get enough credit. Mercy has given him flowers. I think it was last episode or a couple episodes ago as well. Who's playing like a top 5 nickel corner. Javon Bullard. I do think Javon Bullard is going to be essential in this game. You're dealing with Zay Flowers coming out of the slot. I think that especially if they're doing with a backup quarterback, they're going to like to run these screen plays. They're going to try and get some yards after catch here. I think Javon Bullard is going to be essential at laying the hit stick down on Derrick Henry, which is really, really hard to do. But if anybody can do it, I believe it's Javon Bullard, as well as preventing those screen plays from getting out of hand. Score-wise, Mercy picked us to win 21-10, a little bit closer than a little bit more of a low-scoring game, but I could definitely see 21-10 there. Packers finally capitalizing on the red zone, compared to last game. I kind of basically went with a similar score. I said 28-17. I'm struggling with the Packers against Derrick Henry. Even though they've performed well in the past, it's just I'm looking at this banged up defensive tackle room that's smaller. And I do think it's going to be closer than you kind of realize. And this Baltimore Ravens team, like this game is about survival. Like they lose and they're done. Like, that's it. They're done. A win, they at least stay alive, albeit a small chance. I mean, they're on life support, but they are still alive. The Packers, though, they need this momentum. They really, really need this momentum. One of the worst things that happened last year was they lost, I think it was like 3 out of their last 4 games, and it was to the NFC. It was to NFC North opponents. The Packers need momentum going into the playoffs if they wanna make a run to the Super Bowl, and so this game isn't it's not just about validation, but about being hard to kill. That's what we said these past couple of episodes, is that the Packers need to adapt the mantra of being hard to kill. There's a good chance the Packers are gonna be the 7th seed again for the 3rd year in a row. Gonna have to play away games just to get to the Super Bowl. Is what it is. But if they adopt the mantra, hard to kill, this team has so much potential. This team can very easily make a run to the Super Bowl and win it this year, especially in spite of these injuries that they have unfortunately had to deal with. And so that's why I picked the Packers to win. I'm sure that's why Mercy picked the Packers to win too as well. But ultimately, the Packers want to win. They have to realize that they are playing against a desperate opponent. And when an opponent feels like they're backed into a corner, sometimes they'll try to do whatever it takes. Packers need to remain disciplined, get the win, finish up, enjoy the holiday, and move on to the Vikings next. 'Cause, I mean, they still have a shot with the Bears playing against 49ers this week and then finishing against the Lions and their season. Packers do still have a shot to win the NFC North. They have to rely on the 49ers and the Lions to kind of help them out there. But at the very least, you can secure your own playoff spot with a win. I don't think the game is going to be all that flashy. It's going to be cold. It's going to be physical. But ultimately, I think the Packers come out on top. I appreciate y'all tuning in today. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Until next time, go Pack Go.
To Packers fans coast to coast, thanks for going beyond the frozen tundra. We appreciate you tuning in. And as always, go Pack Go!